All right. How exciting. Who do we have here today? We have Caroline Shany. What an exciting moment to be here with my sister. For those of you guys who don't know who this is my eldest sister. She pretty much raised me in this world. And today we get the pleasure of interviewing her to learn more about all the wonderful traits she brings to the world. She is a mother of three beautiful children. She's been married to a wonderful, amazing husband, which we're going to talk about in short too. And then we're going to talk about all the amazing added value she brings to so many lives, right? Caroline, how does it feel to be here, to be on a podcast with your brother?
It feels amazing. I've been wanting to do this, I think, all my life, and it's finally happening.
All of your life.
Well, I feel like, we always have such deep and real, raw conversations, and to have it actually filmed is another level. So.
It is another level. We talk about so many things, and today, even though this is a brand new podcast here at the MTIP Collective, for those who didn't know, we interview people that are members here, and the goal really is to bring awareness and to give pebbles of knowledge of life. Obviously, to talk about you and what you do, your brand, and what you represent, but more importantly, just give people value and some insight to maybe some tools, some steps, some things that you've learned along your way, right?
Yeah.
That can help benefit someone else, that brings some value to their life. So with that being said, why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory, right? Like, where you from and what you do and how long you've been doing it.
I was born in Israel, moved at a very young age to Los Angeles, where I grew up. And at 16 and a half, our father decided to make an aliyah to Israel, which was one of the most difficult times of my life, but it also was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I lived there, finished school, went to college, after I met my husband in Israel during college, both of us decided to move to New York City and create our own family, and pretty much lived there for 13 and a half years and built our three kids, our whole family there. We had an amazing, amazing time living there. And then my husband decided that the real, next adventure should be Miami. Fell in love with Miami. We came here and built another new life here, which has been amazing, with a lot of adventures and great memories that we've made here. I have a background. I used to work for a corporate company for many, many years.
McKinsey. I could say that, right? It's been years now. It's a great company, by the way.
I started out of the Tel Aviv office after school, after college, and then was fortunate enough to land a job in the New York City office. Worked there for about 9 years, and those were probably the best years of my life. Learned so much personality.
What made working for McKinsey so valuable to you?
I think, just in general, they pick and choose certain personalities to work there. It's not for everyone. And I think because of my background and because I had such a, different background in terms of like different places that I lived and also different languages that I knew, they're looking for very diverse people. And that's what I found in common with everybody there. Everybody came from different places and they kind of integrated into a family, even though it was a really large office. But then you learned how to deal with different personalities. And, a lot of people would say like, oh, you shouldn't be working with this person. He's horrible. And that's when I learned that each person is on its own and you basically build your own relationships with the people that you work with. And I was able to learn a lot about myself through that experience.
So you're saying the biggest win you got from McKinsey was learning how to work with all types and walks of life and realizing that regardless of where someone's from, their background, you could acclimate and make it a win. You could build a relationship, but it has to come from you and you have to want to do that. And you learn how to do that because they force you into these situations.
Exactly.
That's cool. And I think a lot of people wouldn't fit that because it's out of their comfort zone. I think a lot of people don't know how to acclimate to new environments and being uncomfortable. And so that's when I also think the reason you were able to do that was because we moved countries and continents.
Yeah.
And I think kids that grew up that way would have to move, end up getting that win where they could just like a chameleon. They could morph into whatever they need to be in order to acclimate. That's cool. So then after McKinsey and you moved here, I know your husband's we're gonna get him into this podcast too. He does real estate. And I know you guys do that together as a team. But I know you have other ventures. So let's talk about some of the newer ventures you're working on. What's something new? What are you cooking in that kitchen of yours?
So I've always, had a keen eye for aesthetics and interior designing. It's always been part of my world. And from I don't know, I love to host, as you know.
Yes, she's a great host. If you haven't been to Shabbat or dinner, Friday night dinners at Caroline's house, you haven't seen dinner.
I like to also go all the way out. That's just my style. And I feel like even, setting a table says a lot about who you are. And that has made me that creativity, or even your home, the home that you built for yourself says a lot about you as well. And it's like a sanctuary, I always say, and it represents, where you come from, who you are, where you want to go. It's just, there's so much power into a home. And the older and older I've gotten, I've realized that has been always my point of comfort when it comes. And then at the end of the day, it's finding, when I go to other people's homes as well, I feel like you really see so much about them and you learn so much about the person when you are, going into their home. Sure,
It is their
site room, their personal. So over the years, by going and coming with a lot of people and networking and just meeting different kinds of people, especially in Miami, I feel like, you meet people from all over. I've met, a group of Latin people, which I never had Latin friends before. I had, a few friends growing up, but never this diverse. So that was
you get like Colombians and the Brazilians and there are Venezuelans and Argentinians and all sorts of fun, Cubans,
yeah,
Dominicans.
so many.
Yeah.
And for me, that was kind of new and interesting because I was able to learn more about their culture. Growing up, both of our parents are Persian. So having that, a little bit of Israel and the Persian side and the American side was like a combination that I always grew up with. And I kind of knew other people that were very similar in their backgrounds, but never like the people that I've met here, and it was interesting to see how their homes and their cultures are different than ours. And kind of, get a little bit of when you travel, right? When you travel, you get a little bit of every little culture. That's why I felt like in Miami, I felt like, I was going to this person's house and that person's house, and I learned so much more through their home. And that's what really made me think that I do want to continue pursuing some type of work in the interior design area. And growing up with our father, who is an civil engineer, and going into construction sites with him when I was younger, that's like the best memories that I have, for him to be able to expose us to that at such a young age. Well, you're younger, so, but
I was there.
You made me about
FYI, she's only 6 years older. So much older, I know.
I feel like I'm a ton older than you, but that's all good. But it was, just being exposed to that world and homes and construction and interior designing, all that has always, it did something inside of me. And I knew that in the end of the day, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to somehow, help people feel good about their home or about the design. And I've always been in the real estate world as well. So I took a little bit of everything, right? The family that comes from a lot of real estate background, our dad who, growing up, was
a builder.
Yeah, sketching designs. And I always was interested in what he was doing, going to construction sites, seeing people's homes, how they design their homes. So that was always a passion that I had, but I didn't really know how to recognize it or do something with it because I'm like, oh, I need to learn, study business or marketing because that's what's going to get me somewhere along the way. And that was just more of a background, but the passion was still instilled in me. And I somehow, no matter how I work in the real estate field with my husband or with you or with, dad or whoever it was, I somehow got into that space of what I loved, which is design. So if it was, Airbnbs or developments, I always ended up somehow finding myself in the design aspect. And that's where I felt like I added the most value. And talking about value, I think when I was at McKinsey, one of the other things that I really learned in the corporate world is that each person brings a different value to the table. And that's something that, that really stayed with me. You can come from a different background. Some are going to have smart things to say, some are going to have not so wise things to say, but you still show that respect to the other person. And then the day you have to find the value in them. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
I mean, I think the respect part matters. Sometimes when I speak to someone that I don't agree with, I realize I don't have to agree with them, but the lesson learned is what I don't want to do versus what I do want to do. Or if someone fails, what fails, the trials and tribulations of life. And I'm like, I could learn from this person's failure and I could still respect them, even though I wouldn't do it that way. And that's okay. So if that's what you're referencing to, then
right.
yeah,
Like just listening to the other end, regardless of what they have to say. I mean, I was fortunate enough to work with really smart people. So most of the people that were in the room
I'm assuming this.
on team meetings and teamworks and team dinners, they all had something valuable to say.
Sure.
But I always, that's something that dad always tells us too, is that, you should always listen to the other end, regardless of whether you think it, suits you or doesn't suit you, or if it's wrong or right for your life, but listen, because that listening part is what makes you change your point of view sometimes, and, makes you realize things that you didn't before. So that really took a lot, upon me when I was at McKinsey, because I felt like I was able to kind of implement that in my real life as well. A lot of things that, that happened at McKinsey
Shape the person you are today.
and today, exactly. And I'm very grateful for it. Even though it was really hard and it was long hours and, it was not an easy job. Not everybody.
But I don't think you treated it like a job.
I didn't.
I think you really enjoyed what you did. And I think that's really a big part of happiness and feeling satisfied, even if you don't make enough money, even if you're up against it. If you are really passionate and you really love what you do, it's like never having a day of work.
True. That's something that our dad always says as well.
Yeah.
I think growing, in any place in your life, if you evolve or you're growing, if it's in your relationship with your partner, or if it's, at work or whatever it is, that is what makes you keep going. So the growing part is super important.
But how do you grow?
So that's up to you.
What do you mean?
So that's the people that you build yourself around with. It's the relationships that you that you have. It's the environment that you put yourself in. It's the situations that you overcome. What is the process of what you're going through?
So what kind of people, places, and situations does one person need to be in or around in order to grow?
But everybody has different definitions for that. What's good for me is not what's good for you, and for me it's different. So
I actually disagree with you. I think everybody, it's consistent. If you are with people that create resistance for you, obstacles, then you probably are going to have the most amount of growth. The more resistance, like a muscle, the more you get used to resistance, the more you acclimate to becoming attuned to overcoming obstacles. And as a result, you grow. If everyone around you simply not only agrees with you, but it is complacent and it's just a repetition of what you already know, then there's no growth. So to me, the definition of growth is resistance. So if you go up the stream, you're probably going to come across a lot of adversity. And it's funny, in my life, I've chosen resistance, right? There's paths that are least the resistance. And I particularly, because I realize for me, I value the growth more than the money. I value the growth more than the potential of failure. I got so attuned to failing that I just it's just part of life. You wake up, you get punched in the face. You wake up the next day, you get punched twice in the face. And eventually you just become immune to getting punched. You're like, oh, just it's Tuesday, we're getting punched in the face.
The only thing is, you learn from those punches.
What you learn is it's inevitable. You're going to get punched in the face. And so, can I still be happy and satisfied and continue pushing forward, although I'm getting punched in the face? And that's really what I think life is about. I really don't think it's about getting somewhere. There's no destination. It's who you're with, and are you okay with the ramifications of what's in front of you? Because there are people that achieve things and they're just not happy with what they achieved, regardless of if it's material or not. So, for me, I really realized it's the acknowledgement and self-awareness. Also, I think
Growing, though. Yeah. Right? When you grow, when you're out of your comfort zone, when you step out of your comfort zone, that's growing. When you feel real pain, an experience that you're going through, that's out of your comfort zone. You grow. So
I enjoy that.
that
I think most people run away from it. I enjoy it. It's not that I realize I should say I like to suffer. Suffering is good. No, I've changed that to pain is good. Suffering's a choice. So you can go through going to the gym, you're doing the ab crunch, and it's painful, but you waking up and getting out of bed and saying, oh, another day at the gym, I'm going to suffer at the gym.
So it has to do with you, not you perceiving.
Yeah. And so, but you have to perceive pain as good.
Sure.
And then you end up getting abs.
Sure.
And if you don't, then you're okay with having a gut. And that's okay too. But don't expect growth and don't expect the achievements, so-called achievements that everybody wants to have. Anyways, that's a philosophical conversation. What I really want to talk to you about is what you're doing. And so I know that you took all of these nuggets of abilities, which you've accumulated over the course of your young career, and you've managed to now put this into a vessel. The vessel is called what?
Rugs & Co.
What is it called? Rugs & Co. And where is Rugs & Co. based out of? What is it?
So it all started out, it is a family friend of ours. It's actually one of your best friends. The father is your
Mr. Hakshuri.
Yes. And, over the years, we've, I've known him since he was 8, 9.
Yep. That's how well he's my oldest friend.
Yeah.
We got to get him in here too.
And basically, he actually reached out to us and said that he really feels like, he asked me, he's like, what are you doing these days? I know I can tell that you have a lot of great qualities and this might be a good fit. Do you want to maybe possibly represent the U.S. brand here? It's from Israel. Sorry, let me back up a little bit.
So Rugs & Co. is based out of Israel.
It's a well-established brand. It's a tailored rug, bespoke rug company in Israel for the last almost 10 years. And I have had the privilege to, meet the team. And we had a lot of Zoom calls and got to know each other. And I got to know the brand. And I also did a lot of my research and, was able to understand the whole rug world because it was new to me, even though it did, it did complement, what I do.
It's design.
It's design.
It's someone's house.
It
could be someone's restaurant. It could be anything, but it's a design element and it's something functional, right? That everyone probably needs. If you really think about it, even if you get tile or hardwood or, if you have concrete floors, ultimately what warms a space is a rug.
Yeah.
And the Persians are known for the rugs. And so what makes this particular brand unique? What is different about Rugs & Co.? And forget the fact that, we have an amazing founder and a great team, which is a big part of it. But what sets it apart? What does it do that's different than just going into a rug store and buying a rug?
So let me back up a little bit. Growing up in a Persian family, I always knew, I always learned about the history behind a rug, especially, our grandfather, who was a big person in Iran, God bless his soul. And he would, talk to us. We had virgin mugs at home. I have virgin mugs today in my bedroom, in my house.
That's right. They're very beautiful.
And they're, just like the art of that and the stitching and, the fact that it's handmade and silk and the material, it was so rich in depth that I always was very intrigued by the whole idea of somebody putting so much work into something that, I always said, okay, it's just
It's handcrafted.
but it's art. It is, it truly is art. And when when they approached me with Rugs and Co., I knew it was more contemporary, but I think the fact that we can still, have those elements in terms of the richness, the depthness, the visually how beautiful it is, but make it modern. And I think that's what, the idea that they had in mind when they came into creating this brand. And that's what really caught me, because I'm like, this is something that has, it's a story, it's history, it comes from somewhere. And I feel like meanings, those meanings are far more important than just, buying a rug in a store. And
Sure.
when you create your own creation, and over the last, 7 months that I've been working with them, and we've had great projects here in Miami, and they have great projects also in Europe, it's the beauty of beautifying a room. You can have a very simple place, if it's a business or if it's a commercial space or if it's a store or a home. I didn't realize how much of an importance how much value it's capable of giving.
Sure, it's a huge element. I think rugs in general, like furniture or rugs, which are big components of real estate, it's the interior aspect of real estate most of the time. It changes, it transforms the value of that real estate in a glimpse of an eye. I personally, from what I understood from Rugs & Co., which is a really, really cool brand, is that number one, the experience, right? It's a custom experience. Every single rug, which is handcrafted, has an eccentric value of being unique to that space, to that customer. They get to choose everything from A to Z. I mean, the colors are like the colors of the rainbow. They're vibrant. The types of materials being used, they're all custom. The shapes, which I found to be the most interesting. The patterns and the shapes are so freaking cool. That's what got me excited. And it's affordable. It's like really, really affordable. You would think this is going to cost an arm and a leg. And I'm saying,
I think a lot of people have a misconception about it, thinking that it's something that they can't afford. And the best part, I haven't said the best part. The best part is that we have our own in-house factory, which means, quality control, all of that goes through Spain, which is a big.
that's huge.
And we have a 30-day production time, which is unheard of.
That's super fast.
Yeah.
That's super fast, especially for lead times coming from abroad. That's really, really fast.
Most projects that, we worked on, they have just been in shock, that we're able to produce from the sketch, obviously, to the production time within 30 days. And
so walk me through that process. I'm a new client. I just came onto the website. I fell in love with the designer, the whole story. I want one.
Yeah.
What's my first step? How to onboard me into the experience?
Well, the first thing is I would schedule a call between Gadi Carmel, who is the visionary designer behind the brand.
Gadi's a great guy. I bet it. Super nice guy.
Super creative.
Very.
Loves to get to know the person first. Super important to him to get to know the family, the person, the space, the dynamics of what they like, what type of design they like to incorporate in their home. So he really studies that before he even, starts creating.
Okay.
And so he has existing designs that he's already created. And we have bespoke designs where you can create from scratch. And so we schedule a call with him, go through that initial call. He will show some designs that he has from the studio that's based in Israel. And I pretty much am going to walk the client through A through Z here in Miami or in LA, in New York. And
but you can do this anywhere in the country.
You can do it everywhere.
You're all over America.
It's all over America.
Okay, great. So, we have that call. We pick the pattern of the shapes of the design, get a find.
Yeah.
What's next?
And then he basically will send in a couple of actual
Samples?
not samples I will bring color samples and as well as the actual texture so you can actually see the depth, the thickness, the material that we're using. But he will send a couple of sketches, 3D sketches, which are...
So you have any renderings after the call, after you physically touch, I want this color or these colors and this shape and this pattern.
Yep.
Now I want to see what it looks like visually, bring it to life. And he gives that to you in a 3D rendering.
That's right.
Super cool. Next, what happens after that?
Then the minute we know, what colors we want and what shapes we want, whether it's existing shapes, which he has dozens of on the website, and it's like never ending.
This is true. I've seen it. It's really cool.
And for those people that are not really sure about what they don't have a vision in mind and they need that extra,
So he brings the value of design and strategy into that specific use case or that person's home or property.
That's right. And then after that, we basically, take it to production, and it's ready within 30 days. I go in for the measurements. I go to the person's house for the measurements, and I'm fully in touch with the client until the process finishes.
You hold their hand and you make sure that every aspect of this is stitched perfectly for that space. You satisfy them and you make sure that they receive their rug perfect.
Yep.
That's the beauty of it.
It's the experience.
It sounds like a 1, 2, 3, very simple, no-brainer thing. And now if people wanted to learn more about Rugs & Co. and what you do with them, how would they find you or Rugs & Co.?
Well, we have the website, Rugs & Co., and we're actually working on an international website at the moment.
Okay.
But in the meantime, you could go on the Instagram page, which is Rugs & Co., or you can go into my Instagram page, which is Caroline at Rugs & Co. USA.
Caroline at
Rugs
& Co. USA. That's your handle?
Yep.
Amazing. Okay, so that's great. Now I'm going to pivot, okay? We talked about what you're doing. Now I want to talk to you about some personal experiences. I think there's some little value, a little golden nugget we can leave with. If you could go back in time and ask your younger self, tell your younger self or share some insight or some wisdom, give advice. You went back to when you were a kid. What would you say to that younger version of Caroline and why?
Great question. Well, now that I'm a parent, and hopefully one day you will be soon too,
We're working on it.
You will understand, it kind of makes you go back. Being a parent makes you go back to your time and allows you to recognize things about yourself that you weren't really aware of, and now you are even more aware of than you were before. And with that said, I think, confidence is something that will always carry on in your life. And the values that are instilled in you from your parents. We have been very fortunate enough to have wonderful parents that have been very supportive and have provided the guidance and the confidence in us. And that is what has made us into who we are today. And I think not taking that confidence and taking those values that were instilled, it makes us who we are, regardless of what country we live in, what situation we're thrown at, how we're able to overcome those situations with confidence is something that's invaluable. And I would say this to any child, including my own, who luckily, they all have also a lot of confidence, maybe too much. But it's something that will always take them, be confident in who you are. Don't ever change yourself for anyone. Don't, try to listen to all the garbage that's around, because there's always going to be someone saying something mean or that's going to destroy your image or your feelings or whatever it is.
So true.
And you really just have to take that and say, you know what? I know I can sleep with myself at night. I know who I am. I know the values that I have and I hold. And the truth is what's important to me.
The truth will set you free. Now, let me ask you one last question. I know the last part was supposed to be the last question, but I really want to ask you this question. Why don't you share with the audience of our small but nimble growing audience of MTIP Collective members and lovers here of our podcast. What's an experience you went through that was personal to you in business, okay? Not so much in life, but really in business, that you had to endure, that was hard. And if you want to share it, right? And it could be something you vicariously had to go through in a partnership or by yourself that you learned from and that someone could take from and say, wow, that was incredible. I am going to learn what not to do or to do from that experience, if there's any.
Mm-hmm. So I think overall, I've been very fortunate in my business world. You know, I've had opportunities that were given to me, or maybe it's just the way I looked at them that built who I am. And I feel like with every experience, it's added a little bit of a value to me.
Sure. It always does.
So I don't think I have like one really bad experience that I can, share with.
I don't want to use the word bad. I would say that was hard. What was a hard experience that where you had a lot of resistance or you had to overcome in order to achieve an objective that you sought out to get?
I don't know about work, but I can tell you about my personal.
Sure. That's also
That is something that I can tell you about is that when we did move countries at 16 and a half, that was probably the hardest mentally challenging situation that I had to be in. Because imagine someone, taking you out of your world, but, you had good grades and friends and your life, which is all of that at that age.
It's true.
And taking you to a country where you don't know the language, you don't know how the people are going to react. You've been there on vacation, and that's pretty much all you know.
Sure.
And, starting a brand new life there. And I think at that age, that really was an experience that will take me for life. I mean, it was something that I didn't want to go. I think I didn't speak to Dad for like a month or so because I was so angry at him, which I was super close to him. So that really put a dent on me, and I think my whole world. And I am grateful to him today that he did take us, because with all the experiences that we had, I met my wonderful husband there and never basically thought that the outcome would be what it was moving there.
So what I think I learned from what your short story was is someone presented something that you did not agree with.
Yeah.
You were resistant to. You fought. You didn't want it.
No.
And then time went by. And so enough time went by where now you're older. And so now you say, wow, had I not been through that experience.
That's right.
And went through that hardship, then I wouldn't got all these perks that I have today.
Yeah.
So from what I hear you saying is the lesson is what seems to be hard or wrong isn't always the case.
No.
So you should do it anyways.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, should always go through, I think, every hardship in life, it happens for a reason. And everything that you go through in life, everybody has a different story, right?
Sure.
Everything that you go through in life makes you and shapes you into who you are today. And without those experiences, without those hardships, you wouldn't be Mikey and I wouldn't be Caroline.
I say the first time you do something and you get a negative outcome from the thing, it's called experience. The second time you do the same thing and you get a negative outcome, it's called a mistake. The third time you do the same thing and you get a negative outcome, that's just you being ignorant.
Yeah.
And so the goal is to live in the experience. And if you can vicariously live through other people's experience, then take it. But that was a great little session. I appreciate you sharing your little wisdom. Let's do this again. I know it felt very short and sweet, right? That's the whole point. We want to give them a little, we want to share a little bit of knowledge and then leave some for the next episode. Caroline, thank you very much. I love you very much. This is very, very special to me.
Thank you.
And we'll do this many more times. Guys, I hope you guys learned something new. And if you guys are in the mood, if you or someone you know is interested in learning about Rugs & Co. and getting in touch with Caroline, please do get in touch. Her information will be listed at the bottom of this video. And I love you. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much.